They annually invest between 700 million to 3 billion in startups, growth capital, etc. So Marcus, can you tell us a bit about your daily job and your remit and what your objectives are in Intel?
Hi. Well, first of all, let me just thank you guys for hanging on. I know this was supposed to be a panel, it became a fire chat between us. So let's make this interactive, okay? But there isn't really a normal day-to-day, actually, right? I travel a lot. I cover a big region. And part of my travel is within this region, but also in the US, where I go every 3 weeks, basically, to California. Why do I do that? Because obviously that's where we hold the equivalent of a partners meeting every 3 weeks, and then I'm there discussing not only activity, but also strategy for long term, and potentially how much money we're going to put in the pie here for this geography, right? But fundamentally, what we are looking for is, the key asset that we're looking for is innovation. So we're trying to find good teams with some unique solutions, some uniqueness of it that will be sustainable and make the investments, right? And this geography specifically here, when I say this geography, I'm taking the geography I cover, both Israel as well as Western Europe, is the biggest investment region that we have outside the United States. Just to put into perspective what that means, over the last 15 years, we've invested a little bit less than $5 billion in this geography, right? And actually $4.8 billion in reality, right? And this is on the venture capital activity that we have in Intel Capital. I'm not talking about Intel, right? And it shows the importance of it. And the reason we're doing this, not because we want to please Israel, we want to please the UK or please France, but because we have found there are interesting companies that we want to support.
So tell me, investing between 700 million and 3 billion a year, it's a bit of a task. How do you find interesting companies and invest and deploy so much money in across the globe? Is it possible?
Actually, that's not working. No, that's not working. Well,
hello.
Oh, it is working. Yeah. No, actually, to be correct, right? We actually don't necessarily invest from 7 to 3 billion. The normal activity, we would invest from 400 to 700 million on a given year. From time and again, we make bigger bets. So last year we invested 3.6 billion, right? And most of which here in EMEA. It's not an easy task, but the fact is, we have a big team. Our team is a worldwide team with only one investment committee. So what we're trying to do is we have two theses. Emerging market thesis, which is we're trying to find interesting companies which are going to grow, which are going to ride the growth of those geographies, right? And obviously there's more risk associated to emerging markets, but then actually hopefully show a higher growth potential than what you see even on those geographies. And that's what we're making a bets on. We've been doing this for a long, long time. We've been very successful. In developed markets, which basically would be the US, Israel, Western Europe, Japan, for instance, what we're trying to find is best-in-class technologies. And there, the key thesis is we have to have competent people who understand the space, but also who can think out of the box, because it's very easy for me to say, look, let's say I'm actually an engineer by training, but let's just say you're an engineer, you look at technology and you say, wow, I fell in love with this. So what? Is there a commercial application to this? Can we make money? Is the valuation right? And so on. So the key thesis, though, is there some uniqueness of it? And what we do there is we try to look as many companies as possible. We try to mark them according to how we believe the market is going to evolve to certain characteristics, and then we grade them into putting them on first, second, third, something like this, and we try to engage with the top companies. And as I said, both Western Europe as Israel have ranked pretty highly with us recently, right? We've done a lot of investments in the region, interesting investments, right? We actually just closed one big investment today in an open source database in Finland, which we're going to announce next week, where we're putting in about 12 million euros. And I'm here specifically not only for this conference, I'm here looking at different companies. And just today I met 3 or 4, 2 of which are obvious investments for us that we should proceed with.
And what sectors are you looking into? I guess it's not only semiconductors, but much broader than that.
Actually, semiconductors are an exception. If you look at the investment activity, we are obviously part of Intel, but we're quite separate to what we do. And what the key parameter for us is actually, can we make money out of this, right? We're measured by financial return. We're measured by comparing ourselves to top quartile funds in the regions we operate. Plus, we're measured also by a hurdle rate that is actually quite high. Right, and we have to beat those, obviously, right? And that, and we hold accountable to that, both to hold our jobs as well as to compensation.
If you look at the last 10 investments you have done, can you share with us what kind of companies those are?
Yeah, of course. It's very broad. I mean, first of all, we invest in TMT as an aggregate area, if you will, but we've been quite big into big data, right? Both analytics as well as storage. And storage deals, we looked at Israel as a key geography for that. We actually made an investment this year, which we have not yet announced. We're going to announce next week. We looked at consumer-based models around video, if you will. Again, Israel, we're seeing a lot of interesting companies coming out of here. And those could be a total failure, but also could be viral and become billion-dollar companies, so we're taking that risk. We continue looking into perceptual computing, which is an initiative that has been pretty much outside of the United States, mostly in Western Europe and Israel, where we've invested in companies like Tobii, which is eye traction. We invested in OMAC here in Israel that got acquired now, which is gesture recognition. We've invested in Indices, which is natural language processing. And we're also looking at e-commerce, and we're looking at things like the sharing economy. So we made an investment now, which we haven't announced, but that one I will mention here. It's a company in the UK called basically One Fine Stay, right, that we did the deal with Index. And so as you can see, it's very broad. The key for us, though, is can we add value, right? And adding value has nothing to do with Intel. It's got to do with what we as Intel Capital can do, right? Can we help with introductions? Can we help on the board? Money, obviously, is part of the value add as well. But we also, do we think we know enough to be a devil's advocate at the board where these companies are discussing strategy and terms and so on, and hold them accountable, but also help with the discussions, if you will. So those are the key criteria we look for on deals, if you will.
Let's look at Israel. Is Israel different from the other territories or countries that you invest in?
Yes.
And if it is different, what kind of difference do you see particularly you want to share with us?
As I said, right, the geography I manage is the biggest investment geography outside of the United States. And within this geography, in reality, there are three countries that matter, actually, not that matter, but actually matter a little bit more, meaning we are much more active, right? And not in order of importance, that would be Israel, UK, and France. And both currently as well as historically over the last 15, 20 years. But the fundamental thing is Israel is different. Israel, what you see here is a concentration, a unique concentration of entrepreneurs, innovation basically, that you have to be on the ground to be able to capture. The mindset is quite different than in Western Europe. I think it's much less conservative, a lot of relationships with the United States, although being different as well. So you have to be on the ground to be able to profit from it. But I think the other difference is also, because of the concentration, it's very easy to be carried away and invest in the companies without necessarily looking at, well, by definition for me, a company in Israel will have to expand from Israel into outside, either the US or Europe or anywhere else, if you will. And you have to have an understanding, how does this company, why would this company be successful doing that, right? And I see because of our presence, a global presence, we can actually take a step back, take a look, and actually make the bets based on that. Can we really have a chance in doing that? And what can we do to help them, if you will?
And can you be specific, mention three specific elements that drives the Israeli entrepreneurs that is different from what you see in other parts of your territory?
Yeah, well, I think number one, in a positive sense, aggressiveness. Right, I think, which is good. They seem to be much more open to, they know technology, intrinsically they know technology when it's a technology company. When it's not necessarily a hardcore technology, it's more of a service or a consumer-facing company, if you will, which would be different than infrastructure software, infrastructure hardware, if you will. What you see is, although they know this, they are also aware that they need to succeed as a business. And this may sound funny, but in Western Europe, sometimes you struggle in getting people to understand that. Right, especially in early stages. Secondly, I think this international expansion that I mentioned is already ingrained here. People are aware that they need to do this, right? And they are open for business. A lot of times you come in and the company is already incorporated somewhere else, so it's already putting an office somewhere else. For instance, we talked to a company today that actually has already staff in New York. They're engaging with people there. And you know, in Western Europe, they would first and foremost try to be successful in their home country. Is that a problem? Not necessarily, because obviously countries there are slightly bigger, right? So you can see that. But intrinsically, people here understand that they have to have an international expansion strategy. And I think the third one is actually, again, you can't really say Western Europe is the same, but I see a lot of relationship with Southern Europe, Italy, France, Spain, Southern France, Spain, which is, you have to be here, you have to see eye to eye with people, right? Over the phone, things don't really work. You have to be close enough to be able to engage with people so they can see what you mean and what you say, you know, the same thing. And, you know, and that I think is key to be successful here. Meaning you have to be perceived as a local player. And that's why we have a big team here. I think probably most of you know the team that we have. It's a team that's very experienced here, that's been around for a while. If anything, we're looking to do more.
So Marcos, your history, you're Brazilian, you live in London, you invest in Israel. How does that work?
I'm a mess. It's even more complicated. I'm Brazilian from an Italian father, lived about 22 years outside of Brazil in 5 different countries, so I'm a mess. But, you know, how does it work? It's quite simple. I think fundamentally this has got nothing to do with the nationality of individuals. It's got to do with how open-minded you are, right? How do you relate to people? In the end of the day, this is a people's business, right? How do you relate to people? Do you trust what they say, and do they trust you? And I have a simple philosophy, which is I say what I do and I do what I say, right? If you're dealing with me, I'm an open book. And sometimes that means that I will be harsh and I will say, sorry, it does not work. But if I say that I'm going to do something, I will, right? And I think that actually has kept me going for a while, and I've been doing this for a long, long time now, right? If you guys, again, talk to my team, it's pretty much the same mentality. And in Israel, that works very well. In Western Europe, sometimes I come across very aggressive because I say, sorry, no way, right? But again, we've been successful there. We are successful here, and if anything, we want to do more, as I said.
So Brazil is another interesting market, a lot of innovation and progression happening. Is there any similarities between Brazil and Israel?
Well, I wouldn't be the best person to talk about Brazil because the last time, I mean, I've been there as a tourist, but the last time I did something professionally there was 12 years ago.
Oh my God.
Right? So, but there are a lot of similarities in the way that you liaise with people, right? As I said, Southern Europe, Latin countries as a whole, and actually the Mediterranean culture, if you will, and Latin countries as a whole would behave that way, which is, you know, you have eye to eye, it's key, people have to trust you, right? And that trust is bought by actions, if you will, right? Again, this is similar elsewhere, but in Latin culture, Mediterranean culture as a whole is very much the truth. What I see in Brazil, though, is it's actually, I would not classify anything linked to that beyond that potential culture, which could be similar, but it's a huge market, a lot of potential growth internally. So a company trying to have an internal market, which would be 100% Brazil, could work. At the same time, you're dealing with a lot of disparity that you don't necessarily have here. People from I came thank God I came from a well-off background there, which helped my life actually. But it's very easy to forget that there are people which are pretty bad, had a pretty bad card dealt to them when they were born, if you will. And in Brazil, it's key that you understand that, and that if you're tackling just that top 1%, top 5% of the population, it may not necessarily be a big enough market, right? And Brazil also is, because of its nature, its population, it tends to be in a certain way isolated, right? Similar to what happens in the US in a certain way. It's open, but it isn't, right? And thus you have to understand that Brazilian reality to be successful. And it is quite different than other countries in the region. It's different than the US, it's different than here. Right.
Should we open the floor, the question to the floor? Anyone has any questions to Intel Capital?
We can talk about football as well, if you guys like.
Good. All right. Marcos, thanks a lot.
Thank
you. And good luck going forward.
Thanks.